Joe Rogan had Zuck on, and he asked him about this very specific thing. Remember the New York Post story on Hunter Biden's laptop in like the week or two before the election was censored, right? And it was a very controversial thing because the FBI was dealing with known Russian interference and hacks and all this stuff. Part of which Trump was like asking people to hack other candidates.
Okay, you're not even setting this up correctly.
Well, okay, I'm going to keep going. And then, so this is what Zuckerberg said. Hey, look.
Let's Zach moderate this segment.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to read the Federalist, which is, a super right wing. But he says, I'll just read you what Zuck said, because that says it all. He says, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, I'm quoting from the Federalist, which is quoting him from Joe Rogan. It's a very professional law enforcement. They come to us and tell us we need to be on guard about something. I want to take it seriously. So when the New York Post broke the Hunter Biden laptop story on October 14, 2020, Facebook treated the story as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, for 5 to 7 days while the tech giants team could determine whether it was false or not. During that time, this is Federal speaking, Facebook decreased distribution of the story by making the story rank lower in the news feed. And this is his quote, Zuckerberg's, you could still share it, you could still consume it, Zuckerberg explained, but, quote, fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. And while he would not quantify the impact, the Facebook founder said the decreased distribution was, quote unquote, meaningful. In a follow-up, Rogan asked if the FBI had specifically said, quote, to be on guard about that story, meaning the laptop story, after originally responding, no, Zuckerberg corrected him, says, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it was basically the pattern. So basically, I guess you would agree, Sachs, Zuck didn't know exactly what to do here with this information, and if it was real or not, which, it turned out to be very real, and it probably could have swayed the election. I mean, I do think if people thought there was a connection between Hunter Biden, maybe it could have. I don't know if we want people being hacked to do that. So what's your take on it, Sachs? Just hacking in general and this specific thing. What should the FBI do if these kind of hacks are getting released of people's families?
Okay, so here's
it's a complicated issue, right? So, there's many vectors. Yeah.
What Zuck basically says, the FBI came to them and encouraged them to suppress the story, or to suppress a story that they described that would be just like this. Okay. So now look, a lot of conservatives are dragging Zuckerberg and Facebook for doing the FBI's bidding. But I think most people in Zuckerberg's position would have believed the FBI. When the FBI comes to you and says, you're about to be targeted by Russian disinformation, you need to do something about it, you would have listened to the FBI. He believed the FBI. My point, and so I don't blame Facebook too much for that. I think it's understandable that he would have believed them. The issue here is the politicization of the FBI. Look, let's back up. What was happening? So the New York Post gets this story about the leaked contents of Hunter Biden's hard drive. In response to that, you had 50 former security state officials, many of whom were Democratic partisans, like Clapper, like Brennan. They signed a letter saying that this story has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation. Now, the truth is they had not inspected the hard drive. They simply said this is the hallmarks of it. And as a result of that, we thought that the social networks and so forth censored the story, okay? Now it turns out that the FBI, by the way, the FBI had the hard drive. They had the hard drive for over a year. It was in their possession.
An image of the hard drive or the actual hard drive?
They had the actual hard drive. The leak of the story was likely prompted because the FBI didn't appear to be doing anything with the hard drive. So somebody leaked the story to Rudy Giuliani, and then he leaked it and so forth to the New York Post. But the point is that the FBI had the hard drive. So they knew it was authentic. Okay, so they knew that this hallmarks of Russian disinformation was not the truth. Because again, they had the authenticated hard drive in their possession. And yet they still went to Zuckerberg and basically played into this narrative, this phony narrative that, Democratic partisans like Clapper and like Brennan had created.
Was there anything meaningful, by the way, about what was on the laptop in your mind? Like, do you think it's relevant? Or do you think we want people's laptops being hacked like this who are in people's political families?
I don't think the laptop was hacked. I mean, there's a weird convoluted story about how the laptop ended up. But look, the point is
should people's personal pictures, and stuff like that be released?
I never liked the part where they were showing Hunter Biden's, drug use
Debauchery,
and the other
yeah.
personal stuff. I thought that was
sex
scurrilous,
stuff, yeah.
and I didn't like it, and I didn't think that was particularly germane. So I think it was an invasion of his privacy. However, there were materials on there related to his business dealings in Ukraine, and I don't see how you can say those weren't relevant.
Oh, I think they're highly
to an
relevant. He's being
election.
investigated
Yes.
for them too now. I mean, a lot of this has to do with timing too. It's like, how do you deal with something like this 7 days before an election when you know the Russians are hacking it, if it has been or not? It's a really difficult situation for everybody, I think.
So look, my point is this, that I can agree with you about the personal stuff about Hunter Biden shouldn't have come out, but with respect to the Ukraine stuff, that was legitimate. It was fair game, and most importantly, I don't know whether it would have swung the election or not. Probably not. Probably by itself, it's not. But the real point here is that the FBI went to Facebook to censor a story that they must have known was true because they had the laptop in their possession. They should not be intervening in elections that way. That is the bombshell here. That's unbelievable.
I think they didn't know the provenance of this, but I guess we'll find out. Where
How
are
do
you
they not know
landing?
the provenance of a hard drive that's in their possession?